everyone to the West Oakland Link community meeting. This is our 6th community meeting, our first in 2024. So welcome. Can't believe the year has moved as quickly as it has. I'm Nicole Marino Choi. I'm the Senior Project Manager at West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project. Our previous 5 meetings brought us to where we are now and has brought us to this 35% design. This project, and specifically the way engagement has happened, will ideally serve as a model for the region about how community members can be involved in infrastructure projects moving forward. What is the project? Well, it's lots of things. Simply, it's a multi-use path that'll connect Treasure Island to West Oakland and West Oakland to Treasure Island, okay? Most importantly, it's an elevated, separated, protected path so that pedestrians, cyclists, anyone who's using it doesn't have to worry about traffic, whether that's from cars or from trucks. Next slide, please. So before we get started, just some meeting expectations to make sure that this space operates smoothly, right? We ask that you communicate with respect, right, and be mindful of how much space you're taking when engaging, and just be aware of those who might not have had a chance to speak. Respect time agreements and do your best to stay on topic. We actively listen with an open mind, right? We assume good faith, and very importantly, we look for who's not here and what we can do to bring them to meetings moving forward. And again, this is a team sport. We wrestle with problems, not people, and really looking forward to meeting number 6.
We're gonna try to align with your schedule. Do you think it'll go an hour and a half?
Just eat, just.
No, we're starting to cook. There's time.
Just cook. Yeah,
Well, what's your estimate?
probably like.
Great. Well, thank you, Nicole. And my name is Gavin Laurie, and I'm a project manager for the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and the Bay Area Toll Authority. And what we here to talk about today is the West Oakland Link. But the West Oakland Link is part of this bigger, regional project, the Bay Skyway. And the Bay Skyway is looking to add a new mode of transportation: walking, biking, scooting, between the East Bay and Oakland and San Francisco. And so this project has 2 phases that we're working on. The current one that we're focused on is the Bay Skyway Phase 1, and this includes 3 projects. One of them is the West Oakland Link, which is the focus of this meeting today. That's the one that's highlighted and circled there. This is going to connect in with the existing East Span path that was a major investment made when the East Span was rebuilt. And it will connect at Huevo Bueno Island to the Huevo Bueno multi-use path that will bring you down to Treasure Island. And on Treasure Island, we're helping support the development of an electric ferry that will offer frequent every 15-minute service between Treasure Island and downtown San Francisco. So this will be, phase 1 really open up trips, a new mode between the East Bay and San Francisco. We also think it will be used to kind of go north on the Bay Trail. And then really the grander vision, and so, for the phase 1, we hope to complete that by 2028. And then the really grand vision is to eventually run a path along the west span of the Bay Bridge. And that path we were hoping to complete by 2033, and that would complete the Bay Skyway and this path that we're looking at. Now, zooming a little bit into the corridor that we're focused on today, where the West Oakland Link is. So this is running along Grand Avenue between Mandela and the existing Bay Trail path that goes to the East Span. We're excited that there's actually a project that's coming before 2028. So we hope that in the summer of 2025, that we will be able to complete the Bay Bridge Forward West Grand HOV project. This includes a temporary 8-foot wide bike ped path that you can see in orange here. And so this is a temporary path that will use the existing infrastructure and carve out some space, some additional space for pedestrians and cyclists to allow them to be fully protected from traffic as you travel from Mandela down to Maritime Street, where you can enter the existing Maritime Street multi-use path that connects with the Burma Road multi-use path. So we're really excited that this will be the first kind of connection, and you'll be able to bike all the way over to Treasure Island. There is a current ferry there. It's not frequent, but there's a lot of amenities and parks there, and also to go enjoy the Bay Trail. So this is coming in summer of 2025. This will be followed by the phase 1 of the Bay Skyway in 2028. And so this will be a mostly 15-foot wide path. It will take over for most of the Bay Bridge Forward path. There will be a small area between Frontage Road and over the railroad tracks, as you can see here in yellow, that will maintain the 8-foot wide Bay Bridge Forward path for now. But this will be a connection when this opens that you will be able to bike without having to cross traffic all the way from West Oakland to Treasure Island. And this will be for all ages and abilities. We really hope this is something people feel comfortable with. Then, to complete this project, we're still working on the date of this. We are looking to complete an additional bridge over the railway to really open up the West Oakland link and make sure it's 15-foot wide the whole time. This is going to have to be a separate project, and it's going to be dependent on, going through the project approval process and getting funding. So today, really, as Nicole mentioned, we're at 35% design. We're really excited to come back with a lot of, trying to integrate some of the feedback we heard last fall. We had 5 great meetings last fall and winter. And so really now we're trying to bring to you the updated design as we move through the design. So one thing to keep in mind, and I know I mentioned this if you're at previous meetings, is the way that the design and community engagement works is that, the earlier in the design you are, the more impact that the feedback has on the larger elements. So, before we were taking feedback and we were still working on the structure and exactly where it would go, we were able to add a great loop that will allow us to never close down the path connection and also increases access from Wood Street. So we're really excited about that. But as we move through the design, we have to start choosing different structure types and things like that. And now we're moving on to more of the amenities and some of how things look. And we'll get to vegetation and colors, but these are the things that we're working on now. So really the structure and where the path is going has been locked in, but we're excited to keep on building on the design with your feedback. So we're going to cover a little bit of the context where we just did. And we'll go through some of the neighborhood context and some of the feedback we received. Then we're going to look at the structure itself and some of the different design options we're looking at on the structure itself. And just to say that the color that we've chosen, fuchsia, is not the final color. That is still something that's being developed, but we're using it to show as an example. So after we look at the structure, we'll look at the ground plane and things that are happening on the ground, because we've opened up a number of areas on the ground where we think we can make improvements to the community. We'll take questions after that, and then we're going to get into the frontage road loop. So this is the additional entrance that we've created on Wood Street, and then where it touches down to the Bay Area before taking questions. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to the design staff.
Awesome. Thank you, Gavin. This is Sarah Keel with Einwiller Keel. You've been hearing a lot from Geo Maine on this project, and they are under the weather with a fever. And so I'm going to do the talking, but I want to say this is the work of a much larger team at our office and TY Lin and elsewhere. So always a collaboration among us and also with the community. So I'll start by saying sometimes on projects like this, they take a really long time, and there's a lot of meetings and there's a lot of, planning and patience involved. And it's important to touch back to the why. Like, why are we doing this project? What is it hoping to achieve? And I think Gavin has covered well that the center of that is that it's really a bicycle and pedestrian connection. And it's about providing connection to the Bay Bridge and the water experience of the Bay Bridge, but also a larger vision of sort of a connected Bay Area. And we think that's really important. We also know that we're landing on ground where a lot of things have come before us. And so in the neighborhood of West Oakland has been cut off by transportation projects and sometimes and by railroads and by redlining and a lot of other things. And so one of our goals is to connect people in West Oakland back to the larger ecology and back to the Bay after historically being cut off. And some of that is a storytelling piece of how you move through each of these different pieces of infrastructural barriers and reveal some of what was there before, and also connect the project as a set of experiences of views of getting to connect to a larger landscape when you're on the trail itself. And we really believe this could be an extraordinary project if we keep our eyes on all of these things as we finish it. So next slide. Some of the history that we've identified, you can see here. So at different moments, there's railroad history, there's amazing history of the Key system, the Shoreline Edge, the Cypress Freeway, and also the work that WOAP is doing today and redlining in the past. So there's a whole bunch of things, and they actually have a particular location on this path that we could call attention to with storytelling as part of the project. Next slide. In a series of preliminary conversations with community, we've identified some stories. There's going to be a longer effort to think more deeply about these stories and how to represent them and how to tell them. But we know that there's more than one era that's important. There's ecology that's important. There's history that's really important. And if we can put that all together, it's a very narrow project, but it's kind of an amazing project in terms of all the things it has the potential to connect and hold in one space. Next slide. We've been talking to the community a lot, and we've had a lot of different meetings. And I think we really welcome the opportunity to talk so directly over and over again with WOAP's assistance. And the community is very I think excited about the project and also very pragmatic. So top concerns are things like safety, ADA accessibility, picnic tables and seating. There's a hope for more green space, mitigating sound. And so we're working on all of these things. And sometimes it's a person with a really loud voice, and maybe that looks like they get the most things, but there might be a good idea that only one person had, and we'll try to work that in too. So we're trying to take feedback at all different scales and to use all of this to put the project together into a whole that doesn't feel like it was made up of a bunch of things, but it's really symbolic of this gesture of connecting the neighborhood and the Bay and the rest of the Bay Area. And so I'm going to come back later and talk more about the on the ground pieces, but I'm going to pass it to Noel to talk about the bridge and the on structure element, which I think is really, really exciting. Noel?
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Sarah. Hi, everybody. Excited to be here. My name is Noel Shamble. I'm our lead bridge architect here at TY Lin. I get the great pleasure of working on this project and with this exciting team. And we've had a lot of fun trying to incorporate as much of that great feedback that Sarah just touched on into this long and complex project as we can. So here's a quick overview of what the part of the project I'm going to touch on, which is, as Sarah mentioned, is the bridge component. So anything that's elevated is highlighted here in the blue and green colors. We'll kind of dig into the depth of that later on, but I want to focus here on the pink as well. And so what we've done is established along a big corridor like this, we've found it important to kind of create little rest stops or periods of pause, or maybe it's kind of a natural place where ramp connections are coming together with the main pathway. And so we're calling those nodes. You might call them rest areas or things like that, but they're little areas where the pathway might be a little bit wider. We've expanded it a little bit, and we're going to focus a lot of our design efforts on implementing a lot of this great kind of extra features on these areas, because we feel like we'll get the most bang for our buck in those sort of zones. And so I'm going to go through about 6 different topics here. So there's sound barriers, light, shade, deck color and treatment, and amenities, and then finally railings. And so first off here, we have sound barriers. these are sound mitigation measures that we would hope in these areas where people are slowing down and taking in the view, having a little bit of rest. We might also provide a little bit of respite from the noise of the roads around them. And so these would be on the northern side of the pathway, buffering that sound. And the idea here is that this is a transparent system. As with all of our design, we're trying to emphasize transparency to enhance the sense of safety and openness of the project. And so on nodes 1, 2, and 3, we're conceptualizing a sound wall here. If you go to the next slide, please, you can kind of see what that might look like, where the fencing stops, and instead we have a transparent paneling system. And if you go to the next slide, we're kind of looking at different ways that maybe we could prevent vandalism of this. We know that's a key concern in this area as well, but also just extending the lifespan of a product like this. And so maybe partnering that with the fence meshing, offsetting things, or some other kind of relationship with that kind of clear acrylic paneling is the idea here. And then if we go to the next feature we're looking at is lighting. So lighting is really a two-parter, right? First and foremost, it's all about safety. One of the main things we want to ensure when we're doing safety is that we have light on people's faces. So not just light of the ground plane, but light of the face that's coming towards you at night. And so this will be continuously lit throughout the entire project corridor. And what our suggestion here is that we have a vertical light pole that kind of gives it a little bit more of an artistic interpretation of a lighting system. One of the main themes that Sarah touched on a little bit earlier, but one of the main themes that kept reoccurring in the feedback we were getting was, try to make it a human space, a pedestrian space that's of a human scale, and in contrast to the really vehicular and industrial heavy setting that it's in. And so we're trying to do little tweaks to what you might conventionally see in order to kind of give it that little extra artistic flavor. So here we have, instead of light poles being horizontal, there'd be vertical. If you go to the next slide, you can kind of see how that might look in these conceptualized images here. And this is an array of lighting that would, again, continue the whole walkway and be integrated into the fence post system, whether that fence be low or high. And that's something I'll touch on again as well later on. The lighting is LED, has great lifespan, very low energy consumption, great sustainability features. And so it's a great product, not just for safety, but also for aesthetic concerns. Regarding shade, we also want to focus shade elements, we thought, here on these node features. And so we had a few different options of how we might design a shade structure at those places. That kind of varies based on what the actual condition of the node is, how much space we have to play with. But here's sort of 3 alternatives we have here. The first, option A, is kind of creating a band that folds up and over. This kind of picks up on a little bit of the color scheme of these horizontal ribbons that might be going along the top of the railing system. Again, like Gavin mentioned, the pink color we have here is totally a placeholder. It's kind of diagrammatic. We hope to get your feedback on coloring and things like that. But you could see how the shade structure in this case would be kind of integral into that colored ribbon of the design. And here you can kind of see other views of that, how it would pop up to really signify the overlook feature of that node system. And then the next one, option B, this is kind of playfully stemming off of kind of a tree-like shape or sculptural system that, again, kind of brings in a really alternative shape into the context of a lot of horizontal and vertical lines. And so something a lot more unique. You go to the next one, you see some great views of this as well. Option C is a little bit more streamlined. And so this is like kind of, you maybe more typical cantilevered system. Here we kind of have those colored bands that fold down away from the overlook, and then the shade canopy is really just trying to be very minimal and floating above it with as little structure as possible. Go to the next image there, you can see how that might look. This one has, as with all, I suppose, but this one we've extended a little bit further over the walkway. So it covers not just the overlook portion, but also the pathway a little bit more itself. Kind of creates a little bit more of an enclosed hole. And the great sort of sub option of that variety is that we could maybe add a solar voltaic array, a photovoltaic array, to get a little bit of energy gain. You know, maybe there'd be charging station, or the bridge could have the great feature that it would, you know, power its own lighting system. So kind of give back to itself, give back to the community. That sort of aspect would be awesome. And here's kind of again what that might look like, folding all the way over the walkway. Now, kind of going back to the deck treatment and the colors a little bit. The idea right now is that the deck, which is 15 feet wide throughout the entire bridge portion, that would be separated into 3 parts. So we'd have kind of 2/3 of that would be for cyclists, who we think would be the main user group. And so we'd have both directions for cycle travel. And then the other 1/3 would be pedestrian walking lane. So it's kind of like a 5-5-5 split. And then there is a portion of the path in blue here, a little bit more to the east, where the width is a bit smaller to kind of weave through the tighter kind of right-of-way envelopes that we have. And so that's a shared use split both directions. And so in both cases, the idea is that we'd have marking denoting those realms. But then on top of that, there's kind of this idea that on the next slide we want to throw to you, which is, you know, what kind of aesthetic enhancements might we look to in the ground plane. On a project this scale, the ground plane is a great canvas for us. And so we could focus those efforts at those nodes, you know, where everything else is happening, the shade and the benches and that sort of thing. And so, you know, maybe it's an artistic interpretation of, you know, some local artist comes up with, for example. This would be a great opportunity to provide community feedback and community engagement in these areas. And so here's a representation of that. And then, or the other option is that we kind of string the color across the whole project and really utilize that big canvas that we have. And in this case, color the deck itself, color the walking surface, which we call the deck, color that throughout the length of the pathway, and really kind of create this carpet of ribbon that would extend throughout the project. And this image will appear conceptually throughout the other images you might see. And it is a good way of kind of diagrammatically showing the directionality of the project, and we think that would actually translate really well into the reality as well. So it could be a great option. Now, I mentioned a couple times amenities. So amenities are, you know, you might also hear them called like furniture or things like that. So see, this is a quick list of some of those features that we're thinking would focus on those node placements. So things like bike racks, informational signage or interpretive signage, seating like benches, you know, mile markers, even bike repair stations here at the kind of main node in the just right of middle, and trash bins, things like that. And so if you go to the next slide, there's some examples of some of these products that we're looking at. It's loading. It's a little stuck. Oh no. Imagine the best products you've ever seen. There we go. Okay. Yeah. So you know, we're thinking of this as a very kind of contemporary design, and so the idea is that the products that we'd be looking at for these features and amenities would match that contemporary feel of the overall bridge project. And these would all be, you know, very low maintenance, bolted down, very safe and durable products that we're all very familiar with. And then so we go, lastly here, I want to touch on the railing types. And here we get back to the shades of blue map. There's a few different configurations of railings. First, I'll touch on that. Then those configurations have to do with what sort of requirements we have in terms of what we're next to. And so the the darker blue you see kind of on either end, that's signified by the A. That's where we don't really have much around us, and we can use a lower railing, like a bike rail height, about 42 inches, a more conventional bike rail height, or handrail you might call it. But then in cases where we're next to a roadway, we might have to have a taller fence per Caltrans code. And so we might have the condition where we have a low fence on one side and a tall fence on the other side. That's condition B, which is kind of the majority of the project here, which we sometimes call the high-low condition. And then in two places, condition C, where we're crossing over something that we know we have to have a high fence on either side. So smack in the middle of the project, we have Maritime Avenue. We know we would need high fence on either side of that. And as well to the far left on the west, we're crossing over a railroad track. And so again, we need high fence there. So we wanted to design a railing system, and that would be kind of convertible and flexible to adapt to these different conditions, regardless of whether it was high or low. It wouldn't look weird either way. So this kind of angular system is what you see on the next slide, but you've already seen before already, is what we came up with. So the first idea is that we angle the rail posts outward to kind of create an open and inviting situation at the lower kind of handrail zones, to make it feel as spacious as possible. But then when the condition is that we have to have the 8-foot height maximum or height requirement, that the fence post would come back in to provide that safety and sense of enclosure. And so here we have left to right, the low, the high-low, and the high-high condition. Then we go to the next one. You can kind of see some more 3D views of those. So on the low railing type, this is, again, like I mentioned, more conventional handrail height, but you can see here the light post fixture is still like an extended fence post. That would be the same fence post that you're getting on the high condition. If you go to the next slide. This is the low high, where you have one of each there on the left. And then finally, for when we're crossing over those important arteries, you have the full enclosure. But I would stress, I designed bridges for a living for 15 years. A 15-foot wide walkway is very generous. It's above average. And so I think, even with 8-foot fence on either side, this pathway is going to feel really great and open. And so here's an example of that. Now, when we talk about railing, of course, color comes up, and this will be the last topic I leave you with. But you've noticed the colors have sort of been alternating through these images. So that's something we want to throw to you as well for your feedback. So here's an example of a white railing system throughout. This might pair well with, for example, color on the deck treatment, or putting color elsewhere in the project. Or maybe you prefer it just sleek and white like this. We did look at options where we're kind of carrying this band of color. You'll see later in the program, Sarah will show you some great images of splashes of color happening in the landscape. And so with the bridge, we want to kind of think of ways we can carry that ribbon of color throughout the project, throughout the corridor, and kind of knit everything together holistically. And so one way to do that while still enabling a lot of transparency in the railing system is to kind of strategically place our bands of color. And so here we have bands of color at the top of each rail system. Again, could be pink, could be anything. We go to another variation of that. This is where we're painting the band at the top, but then we're also painting the mesh. It's a little bit tricky to see, but it's a subtle difference. But I'm sure you can imagine that as you see that over a longer area, you start to pick up that color as well. And then finally, painting the rail posts themselves. This really kind of has the whole system become that ribbon of color, and that kind of holistic splash of life. Kind of help us dial in, what level is to your taste, and where you think the color or the visual is most effective would be much appreciated. I think that next slide kind of compares them all. Yeah, there you go. And I think with that, we're about wrapped up with all the kind of unstructured things. And again, there's a lot of great stuff that Sarah and Gavin will show you about how that spills into the off structure. And again, the whole idea of creating this cohesive, holistic design is what we're after. So your input on either topic will influence the other. And so thanks very much for your time.
And thanks, Nolan. I wanted to just jump in because I know it's been in the chat, but you know, we are posting, we have a survey that's associated with this. These slides are available. And also we'll be giving Nicole and my emails. So if you want to have direct feedback, and we have an open house coming up, but there is being posted in the chat, the survey. It's available on the West Oakland Environmental Indicator Project website for the project, but just wanted to say we hope to get your feedback. All right, go on.
Yes. All right, let's open it up to questions.
I think actually, so we're gonna go through a little bit more and then we're gonna pause for questions if that's okay. Or I mean, we have time. Let's pause for questions if there's questions now.
Yeah, I wanted to address the ones in the chat. That way they didn't get lost once we moved onto the ground plane. I see a question here about, are there significant durability or cost differences of color options versus no color? I'm gonna say yes. Leaving it not painted, I imagine is included already, Gavin, in the cost versus adding.
Let's let Noel answer this. I think he's in the best position to answer that.
Good call.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, you would think right off the bat that, you know, painting something costs more than not painting it. However, to kind of extend the lifespan of these products anyways in the marine environment that we have, you know, you often would need a finish anyways. And so sometimes if you need to paint something anyways, you might as well pick a color on it. We are under chats with Caltrans about, you know, what kind of colors they would be able to maintain easily, and that does affect, you know, the lifespan of a project looking good. And so it's not quite as simple as saying, you know, the one in the bottom right where everything's painted is the most expensive. And so really we're asking for you guys maybe not to consider the cost as much right now, because we can figure out ways to even that out in terms of color. But just to think about what feels right for you, I think. I mean, I shouldn't say that we shouldn't consider cost, Gavin, but I think, you know, like the one in the upper left, that's not no color, that's everything painted white, for example. I should have written that a little differently, but yeah, it's kind of, none of these are outlandish cost-wise.
Great. And there were two more questions that I wanted to elevate. If we have outlets present, is that an option for one of the shade structures that uses solar to have a charging station?
I think it's something that we're looking at and considering, and that was the kind of the thought behind maybe having the solar there. That was something that we have heard from the community, and there's actually been that direct suggestion in our meetings. So I think we're still looking at that as an option. There's a lot of things to consider with it, but you know, that is one way we're thinking about it. Is we had the solar panel, it would be, you know, potentially to do chargers. You know, what type of chargers is a question, because we've had people asking about just basic cell phone chargers, but also like mobility scooter chargers, you know. So I think that that's still being explored, but if people were really excited about that and like that as an option or have concerns with it, that's something that we'd love to hear about.
Okay. Jimmy, I see your hand up. Go for it.
Yeah, this is Jimmy O'Day. I live down Grand and Myrtle. Just on that point, Gavin, for charging, was that like for on the structure or is that off the structure? I missed that.
So yeah, I think what we're talking about here is maybe if we went with the option, get back to it, with the solar panels on the structure. So here we go. So, you know, the thinking was here is if we did have this and we were generating some power, that maybe there's a way we could connect that with chargers. I don't know if we would want to just have a purely grid attached charger, but I think the thinking is more here. Maybe there's a way to kind of store some and create energy here. So that was what our thinking was. But like I said, if people have ideas or suggestions, you know, we are still working through these details. So this is the time to, you know, give them to us.
I see. Okay. I guess on structure, I guess it seems, you know, history of seeing where scooters are and whatnot in Oakland, there could be a chance for clutter and harder for service people to get access to something that's on the structure. And I guess just thinking of, yeah, things being broken down and ultimately somebody has to get out there, but they don't, and just kind of the rundown that could lead to.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. Yeah, no, that's helpful feedback.
Another question that was presented is whether or not there could be more than 5 nodes, or is that currently what we are working with?
I would say that, so the nodes that you've seen here, let's see if we get to them. Really what we did with these is we tried to find the opportunity areas. So these were the areas where there was already something happening with the structure that, you know, allowed for relatively affordable addition of space. So to expand the structure, we, you know, we can look if people think that there should be more than this, and we want that feedback. There could be ways of doing it that are kind of smaller nodes even than these. So if that is something in terms of that the people are interested, you know, we'd like to know kind of what those would be used for in your mind too, so that it would be helpful to get that feedback. But there would be an option. I don't think they would be, if we added nodes, they wouldn't be as large. They might be kind of mini nodes with maybe just a bench or something, or a sign or something like that, because really we don't want to bloat the cost of the structure, because that takes away from other things that we're able to do. So we are trying to keep it, I mean, it's already quite a big structure for you know, a multi-use path, but we could definitely look at it. So that's something we'd love to hear. If you think there should be more resting places, or
And Gavin,
know,
if I
go ahead.
if I could pile on there, you know, the project is, you know, just is at 1.1 miles. So if you imagine it's a 1 mile length, we're roughly looking at a node every quarter mile in terms of walking, and so walking or biking. And so that's about a good pace we've found in other trail systems where, especially considering the walking use, where you'd want to pause. Again, we're happy to look into adding more if you'd like us to. These nodes, just to go into more specificity on them, the going from left to right, the node on the left is the kind of highest point of the project, and probably offers the best view out to the bay, unobstructed by the other buildings that are to the south, and would really be the kind of first point where everything opens up really nice to you. Node 2 is where the 2 ramps are coming together. So you can see it barely here in this image, but they're kind of overlapping each other. But from Maritime, there's a little J-turn ramp that's proposed to come up to the bridge level, right? So this would already be kind of a commingling area where a node would be nice for people to kind of stop and rest, but also would be great for people that are having through traffic to already kind of have this this wayfinding beacon that, like, hey, you know, watch out for merging traffic kind of a thing, right? And again, sort of the same thing happens at node 3, where from Maritime, there's a ramp. This time it doesn't have a turn, so it's really just overlaid into the bridge that you see there. That's why the line is double thick. But to the east is where that ramp would intersect our bridge once it gets up to grade. And then we go across, come onto Grand, and then when we get back onto structure, node 4 is really where lots of things come together. That bigger loop ramp to the south, but also the walkways on Grand itself coming over. And while I'm chatting about all this, ramps and nodes and things, I did see a comment in the chat about ADA accessibility, so I'll just jump to that and reassure everybody that this is fully ADA accessible design. I already mentioned the extra wide 15-foot width, but in addition, all the ramp structures are not even categorized as ramps. They're low 4.9% grades. You know, if you go from 5% to 8%, that's a ramp that needs a handrail. These are all really low slopes, and so not just good for cyclists, but also wheelchairs and all accessibility uses.
Noel, last question, since you are here and the right person to ask. Can you comment on the height of the railings and safety?
Yeah, so there is a, you know, there's sort of a two-parter there to that. There's a handrail height and there's a fence height, or a railing height. And so, like I mentioned, we are at a low enough grade where you're technically not a ramp, so you technically don't need a handrail, but because we're inclining the railings out, you do want something to kind of guide your walking along that curb edge. And so we have provided a handrail back in, and a handrail height for your, your staircase or in a building is around like 30 inches to 32 inches. And so that's what we've shown here. But then there's also a bike rail height. And so this is on trails and bike systems, they usually require an extra high height because as a cyclist, your center of gravity is a little bit higher. And so they don't want you tipping over a handrail height. And so that's more like the 42-inch range. And so that's what you see on the right side. So that's what our lowest railing system would be. And on the left side, per Caltrans code requirements, the fence height is required to be 8 feet tall over any sort of facility. And the same thing with railroads as well. And they also require a tight 1-inch mesh to prevent objects from being passed through the railing system. Basically, everyone's concerned about falling objects on the roadways below. And so that's why they have those requirements.
Thank you.
Great. So I think we'll open up. We'll have 2 other question breaks, but I think we're going to pass it on to Sarah, who's going to talk about some of the off-structure ground plane.
That's great. And I may be able to answer a few of these as we go. I'll do my best. The biggest thing, and I just want to kind of say this overall, is this isn't an off-structure and on-structure project. We've been working really, really hard to make a trail, and the trail happens to be both on the ground and up in the air. And as we've thought about it, what's really important about the on the ground places are it's where we're touching the ground of the neighborhood, and it's the place where we're touching ground into something that's already there. So in many ways, I think a lot of the comments we've had from you about being in right relationship and knowing where we are, you'll see expressed in some of these proposals. And I'm going to walk through those in more detail. Next slide. One of the things that came up as we've been talking about this has been a question about sound. And so but we've been at landscape architecture long enough that we actually own a decimal meter. And so we took it out and we took some measurements, and it's not incredibly unsafe. You can see the measures on the bottom, but it's just mostly above unsafe levels. And those levels are really defined by the kind of use. And so these are park levels where you might be sitting on a bench for a long time. And so I think the way we've really been thinking about the space is it's important to provide some moments for gathering, but the real experience of this thing is about moving through the pretty awesome structures of the freeway, reconnecting to the views, and not long-term lingering in most of the areas, although it happens in some of the areas. We're also thinking about that as a design constraint where it's really important to cue to people who are maybe in cars or trucks that or other bikers or e-scooters or that kind of thing. There are people here and there's a lot of bikers. So it's got to do a bunch of things that are visual, and you'll see that coming through our design. Next slide. A great report that T.Y. Lin did looked at ways in which street art and ways that you paint the ground plane differently to signify to people like, hey, this isn't just a road for cars, or actually reduces the rate of crashes with pedestrians and cyclists by 50%. And it's a pretty low hanging fruit. And it's something that feels like it grows out of the artistic community that's here, and that could also be the expression for a lot of different kinds of stories. Next slide. We also have been looking at what are the design elements that are happening on the structure that can happen off the structure, and vice versa. How can we bring things together? So there's furniture, so if there's a bench, it would be the same one, both on and off. And we're interested in making human scaled spaces that have a kind of coziness and that also have lighting that's for people, not just for roadways. And we want to make sure that the thing that we're making is in a color or other elements that make it different than the freeway. This is symbolically a place for people and an invitation into an area that it's been mostly for cars and trains and big scaled infrastructure. And so this thing needs to be right size for our bodies. Next slide. Our design elements, we want to be really strong and iconic, but we also want to be maintainable and durable and straightforward in a sense. And so we're using paint and color as one of our tools that we think can be applied to the ground, to walls, to other things. We're using lighting that can light surfaces, but also can make ceilings. We're trying to bring back as much as we can a sense of ecology, which means both planting, but also places where we can have permeability. And we have a kind of signature element, which is a mosaic, which is a very durable thing actually to do in the public realm, but which has a lot of bang for its buck in terms of color and expression. And we would work with local artists on doing a series of medallions that invited people into the project. Next slide. One of the things the community asked us in our last meeting, or even the meeting before as well, are how much planting can we have? We really want to have a lot of planting. And we were like, oh, we're hearing in some meetings that it's limited in these areas. So we wanted to be clear. We've asked and we've gone in and we've made this map, which we'll look at a larger scale, that shows where it's possible to plant trees, where it's possible to have low planting, and where it's possible to have marsh or bioswale planting. And we're going to do the maximum amount that's possible with an eye also towards maintenance. Next slide. So I'm going to now walk you through the ground experiences starting at Mandela and West Grand, so the easternmost point. And we're really looking at two options, which you can see here. On the right is sort of that project Gavin mentioned that's going to go first, which is the Bay Bridge Forward project. And you can see at the corner of Peralta Studios, it has a fairly narrow sidewalk and then a bike lane. And then we have a second option on the left where there's more of a plaza at the corner and kind of a shared space for all uses. And it doesn't split into a sidewalk and a bike lane until you get a little bit further west there. And those are the main differences. It also allows us to have a little bit more planting and trees in the option on the left with the plaza and a little bit of additional width. In both of them, there is a protected bike lane on the north side of West Grand. Next slide. The Mandela plan that we prefer, and this is a great one for you guys to give us feedback, is the one with the plaza, because we feel like it gives you a moment to pause and to mark this corner, and it connects with some of what's already happening in Mandela Parkway. The bus stop has been accommodated in this design, and I can show you where it is, but we like the idea that there would be space and that there would be as many canopy trees as possible. Maybe there would be a way to also mark the old shoreline in the ground, because it is pretty remarkable that this was the water's edge a long time ago. Next slide. The Bay Bridge Forward option you can see here. It's narrower. It has seating. I think we can get a lot of the same qualities, but it doesn't really anchor you until you get all the way into Mandela Parkway onto those two plazas. And in some ways, I think just intuitively, for me, the corner by Peralta Studios feels like a place you can get your back up. It feels comfortable to be there. Next slide. These are some images just to show you what that might look like. So this is from the center of Mandela Parkway, looking across towards Peralta Studios. You can see these pink pylons. Again, they could be any color. They're going to need a lot more design time to find just the right thing. This one says, "We own our air." That's kind of in honor of Woe Up and the work that you all are doing, but placemaking elements that help you know where you are. And we span those across Grand Avenue also to form sort of a gateway moment there. But you can see how that links across. Next slide. Oops. These are two more views of the same, just to give you a sense. It's sometimes with plans, it's really hard to understand what it would be like to actually be there. So we wanted to give you some views that are human scale, eye level. This is what it feels like to be there if you're walking around the plan as we would actually experience it. Next slide. Now, this is an option that shows the wider plaza, and you can see the width. It's very similar, I think, from this view, but you get a feeling of how it works and the sort of anchoring at that corner. I think it tells you it's a bit more of an invitation, is what I would characterize it as. Next slide. This is an aerial view looking towards the west, where you can see the new protected bike lane on the right, a pullout for the bus. The bus stop is also accommodated on the other side. And you can see how we're using these cable lights coming across and the paving to kind of welcome you in to the bike path. Next slide. This is as you get a little bit further to the west, where that is starting to split, and you can see the pink is a placeholder. I was going to say that again in case anyone came late. This is a medallion that is talking about the history of the Ohlone people at the shoreline, which was in this location. It also is just a way of telling people, hey, meet me at the, and you can say that that's where you're meeting, and then you can see the protected slower moving pedestrian path on the left and the bike path on the right, and the lights that span across both. Next slide. This is showing you in more detail kind of dimensions for those of you who like to know what is it really, how big is it? So you're seeing in this case the 10-foot cycle track and a 6-foot pedestrian path with planting sort of binding each one, and then the canopy trees on the south side of Grand. And then you're seeing the protected bike lane on the right, although I think we have to update that. Next slide. As you traverse further to the west past Campbell and Willow, we run out of space to have a lot of additional street trees. So we've added some of those in both Campbell and Willow Street. So there's greening happening where it can in this case. Next slide. Uh-oh, slides are slow. And so you can kind of see here, I think this is an important one in section to understand, where there would be a bike path north of Grand. There's also a path on the structure, sort of in the space of the sidewalk now, and then the alley path on the left here. And what you can see then is kind of the dimension and the feeling of that 20 feet, which is different when it has sort of walls on it and gets you a feeling. You're also starting to see that we're closing the space under the freeway from this side just to give more definition and quality. And I'll show you more what that looks like. Next slide. We think one of the biggest tools in this area is lighting, both for making scale and making a ceiling, and also for safety. So this is one of those spots where we think there's already a food truck that comes here that could be a place that gives you just enough space where people coming by could use the food truck. There's also people who are already stopping here. It gives you just a little space to be, so you're not sitting on a curb or something there. Next slide. So one of the areas that we're also most interested in getting feedback about is there's a space underneath West Grand to the east of Wood Street. So just for orientation, at the bottom left of the page, there's a new building, modular building that just went up called 2121 Wood Street. This is sort of across Wood Street from there underneath West Grand. And people were really interested in safety, and Caltrans was actually open to the idea of activation. Next slide. So one thing that we've been talking about is whether or not there could be a larger art wall in this area and really change the feeling of the space by having some kind of art that actually is on the ground plane, but that also went up the wall, which we think could be really powerful in terms of identity and placemaking. And there's lots of precedents for it. Next slide. There are also some concerns about graffiti and maintenance. So we were also looking at a wall that would have a creeping fig or a vine or something on it that would not have the same issues, and potentially would have more greening in that area sort of behind the columns, as something that, since we can't have street trees, could be a real plus in terms of softening what it's like to be here. Next slide. And then as you get a little bit further on, you can see how we would then let that wall give way to space that was underneath the structure. And we're looking at a couple of different programs, one of which is an idea about a half-court basketball and some skate areas with lanterns. Roller skating is a really awesome thing that we've worked into some of our programs. We also find it works great for little kids who like to scoot, but they're not near a road. They can do that safely. And how to do a space that really serves those things in a way that is fun and has a strong identity. And potentially we could light the ceiling and find some ways to bring a strong identity to this place. Next slide. Here are some views about what that might look like. You can see how we're using paint on the ground plane. I love the idea of a dance area. I think we're really open to ideas about what would make this feel really special, but also be durable, practical. We just want to kind of bring people here. We believe that if we bring people through to use this space, that's actually the best way to keep public space healthy. Next slide. One of the other programs we looked at was a dog park. There's one of those in another area in Oakland where you can get underneath there, and there would be a basketball court maybe, so you'd have different kinds of users, but people coming and going. And yes, a rarity worth showcasing. That sounds good. And I think there are more and more precedents for this all over the world in America. And then, even in Oakland, there are other precedents for people doing this. And especially things like dog parks are places where people really come and use them. And it can be a nice thing to have a dog run. It builds a kind of community of people. Next slide. So these are some views of what that potentially could look like here. And you can see we're using those string lights and pulling them through this area. So there's a larger identity and an invitation to come underneath here. Next slide.
So I think we're going to pause here for questions and see if there's any questions. I think we have enough time, and then we have a little bit more to cover, but not too much. So
Yeah. Does anyone want to? Oh, Warren, I see your hand up. Go for it.
Hey everybody, thank you project team for pulling this all together. This is phenomenal. I have like chills for how cool this looks. One question I have just for like all of West Oakland is how did you get Caltrans to agree to let us put things under their structures? And if you can replicate that in other places, if we can commemorate that in this project and later on we as advocates can do the same in other places, that would be so helpful.
So the first thing I would say is, the reason we are looking at, options for walling off and underneath is because we are still trying to, finalize that we can do this. But we have gotten indications, as we were mentioned, that this is something they would be interested in doing. I do think that, it's the location, and I think they understand that there is a need to kind of draw people to this. And for us, one of the big things is that feeling of safety, something like a dog park or something where people would be there. But I do think that, they do have an understanding that we are trying to bring people and create that sense of safety. And so I think it is a little bit of maybe the location that they're open to it. I don't know if it's great if we can make this work, and it could be a model for other places. But I do think that they see the value in those additional people coming to the area. So that I don't know if that's the best answer, but that's kind of, I think we started to see it, and they, as soon as we brought it to them, they were like, oh yeah, we completely see that value.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Warren. Felix, go for it.
Hi, my name is Felice. I have two questions. If there is a limitation, on how much seating space there might be because of budgetary reasons, is it possible to ask local businesses to donate money for benches, maybe with their monikers on them, or a way of advertisement?
I think it is, but I'm going to be a real optimist on this one. I believe transportation projects, then this is a transportation project more than a public park, are well funded. And I think they can will be able to afford our benches. If I don't pick the most expensive ones, but I don't think that's going to be a huge issue. I think we're looking at more being rather than we'll just have a bench the whole way through, like trying to put them in places where there's something nice to look at, or trying to put them in places where you might want to stop and wait for someone, or trying to put them in places where they they have really good qualities. And there are some places where it's really loud and you're kind of blocked off. There's other places which are great. And so if I imply that we weren't going to have them in some places, it's more because I think we're trying to get them in the right places, and it isn't everywhere. And we'll find it, and we'll come back, I think, eventually with a specific how many do we need to make it work.
It's just that I didn't see them in the drawing, so I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I thought it'd be a nice way to get local businesses to contribute, and have some visibility during the project. Secondly, I saw one design that was culturally related, and so I'm wondering if the artwork could also. I'm sure this has been broached before, but if some of the artwork could be culturally related to people in that vicinity.
That is our hope. And I think everybody on the design team is working towards that. And there will be a whole separate process around art, but our hope is that it will very much tie locally.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Those are great questions.
It's a great question. I would just add on that and just kind of shout out to, providing feedback too, because one of the things that I think we've struggled is there's so much history in this area and so many kind of different cultural aspects that we do appreciate any feedback on really what people feel is kind of their desire for this neighborhood when thinking about the cultural amenity.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I do want to note there was a question specifically about suicide barriers, and I'm not certain that we answered it the way that it deserves. So I am asking for the team to actually spend time looking at what a safe barrier looks like for this entire path, and that we have a fair answer for our open house on April 23rd.
Yeah, definitely. I can take that. We obviously, safety is our utmost concern on any project, but especially one that's elevated. And so suicide prevention is a core component of that. On a project like this, of this size, that's usually integral into the fencing system. So we don't usually, because of the height isn't as high as, your marquee Golden Gate Bridge kind of things that have like a net underneath that you might see in something like that. And so at this height, we're looking at just, doing that through the fencing system, which is not just at a good height, but also I touched on before, the meshing that is required is a tight mesh, so you can't put things through, but it's also a tight mesh so that a shoe can't get any sort of grip or purchase on it. And so over those sort of key areas where the bridge is up high or over a key intersection, climbing wouldn't really be as feasible. And so that has sort of a built-in deterrent into that aspect as well. But we'll certainly be, as we go into final design, be looking at things like that and making sure, as the commenter noted, that there aren't unintended consequences in our design for things like that.
Thank you. I really want to make sure that we are designing at the margins and
absolutely right
and answering that.
Appreciate it.
Were there other ones we should cover now? We're also going to have one last question session, so we could also save them. Great. All right. Sarah, back to you.
Okay, so we were just at the space underneath Grand Avenue on the east side of Wood Street. Right at the edge of my page here, you can see Wood Street, and there's that new modular housing at the bottom right of the page this time. And so we're looking at a way to integrate a way up onto the structure that also starts to get into open space. There's a big amount of open space under the freeway here, which I think we're really excited about being able to get long views. There's already some planting and there can be more. So next slide. So a little bit of detail here. I showed you the where can we plant slide. This is just showing that in more detail because this is one of the places where we have a big opportunity for trees. And a really long time ago, and we had looked at planting in this area, all along the freeway. And so I'm excited to see this come back. You can see the little red squares and circles around the columns. There's a 10-foot offset at each column where you are not allowed to plant so you can maintain the structures. We also at the edges have some areas where we have to have lower planting or there's private property, but we're looking at maximizing it where we can. Next slide. So this is a view from Wood Street. Again, you see the medallion in the foreground. In this case, it's about ecology and the bird life that's here. And because the bike path itself is a little bit like a boardwalk, it's close to the ground in this area, we sort of wanted to think of this area like a habitat area where there's restoration of plants and trees. And you can see on the left, there's a parking lot, and that is a private parking lot for the 2121 Wood Street project, but would have people coming and going from that parking lot, if you're wondering what that is. And also the marker telling you where you are, that right now is pink and not fully designed, but someday we'll have a design and have light, but I think it could also be an art opportunity. Next slide. This is what that starts to look like as it moves in and around and under the structures. Many of you may have walked out there. We've walked out there quite a bit. It's kind of a special space, and you can see how we're low, and then we're winding around to the right, and we're getting higher as we go around in that loop. And we've put a whole bunch of trees at the center of that, so you're coming through those and that we're coming around and over and onto the structure. But it's a big, long, graceful, non-ramp, so 4.9% or less loop that you can take up, and a lot of people can go along this with relative ease. Next slide. This is then a view from the opposite side of the loop, and you're seeing how the ramp works from low to high, coming around that corner, how we have the non-planted areas at the base of the columns, and we have these markers. We really think it's important to have some symbolic things. It's the color, it's the markers that say this is a place for people, and that you're supposed to come here and you're invited in. Next slide. This is then a view more on the ramp looking to the south from the same thing, showing people moving up onto the higher structure. Next slide. And one thing I should have mentioned is in those, you can see that we're matching the rails that Noel had showed. That's just trying to make things consistent all the way through for transparency and color and so forth. At the corner of Maritime and Grand Avenue, we have two places where we touch down. So you're on the structure and you're high up in the air, but we also have these sort of dog legs that end in the orange circles that are ways that you can ramp down. And we think those would be places where we might do medallions related to the history of industry in this area, of container shipping and the Port of Oakland. There's some great stories to tell here, and just to really identify where we are. Next slide. And then after you cross over and you're looping back around, you're really coming around. You have a series of interesting views just because you're moving in a 360-degree way through space. And so you get the best tall, sort of high up in the air view, and then you kind of turn and come around and you land on the existing Bay Bridge bike path. And we've decided that that's a really important moment. It kind of is the anchor. If we have the plaza at the Mandela end, we have a plaza at this end, and it's the invitation to anyone who's on the bike path to West Oakland. And we're thinking about using a pavement pattern and lighting and other things to really mark this moment as an important place, but also to have seating And to make it really clear in terms of wayfinding, it is also one of the places, we have them at a number of places where a water fountain and emergency call boxes and bike racks, it's a pause, like a rest stop along the way. Next slide. So this is then a view at the touchdown. If you look on the right-hand side, there's an existing bike path out to the Bay Bridge. And then you're seeing how we're making this triangle that has a series of these lights and also these sort of taller posts that could be art elements. And we're slipping something underneath the freeway, almost symbolically. What was here before that all of these posts have landed on? And we think it could be a really great way to introduce, hey, if you want to get off, there's this amazing neighborhood over here for people who might not be going that way, but it's very exciting and it becomes a really interesting, iconic moment at this point in the project. Next slide. This is a view looking the other direction, more sort of a little bit more towards Berkeley. Again, you see the lighting, you see how this sort of pause area works. We believe you couldn't miss it on your way here, which is important. We have some constraints. We are going to do planting in this area as well, but we have some constraints because there are some existing bioswales and other things where we can change plants, but we can't add trees, for example, but we're doing what we can. Next slide. And then this is an aerial view just to kind of show you how this works. And so you can see the bike path that we're talking about today coming in from the right and how it lands on the existing trail. But it also makes a place here. And it is the place that is very much about wayfinding and storytelling. I think it's also very much about connection. When the original bike path was built, it didn't include a connection to West Oakland or to Oakland, and making this a celebration of that connection as opposed to the most minimal way to do it really feels good to me. And I'm excited about, what this could be within a very simple palette and a direct way of doing things. Next slide. Actually, go back and then we'll take questions. But so, yeah, I'll just close by saying I've actually been working on this project for a really long time, and I'm just super excited to see it becoming more and more real. I think we're approaching a palette that is almost, I'll say almost approvable by Caltrans. We're getting very close, and we're working on all the questions that you guys have been asking us and trying to take community feedback, and would just welcome anything more people have to offer.
Sarah, thank you so much. And I can't express how wonderful it is to see what our community could look like. And I've never seen so much green, or I've never been able to imagine so much green in the neighborhood in which I live. So thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Gio and Claire. I know you're on here somewhere. I'm part of a much bigger team.
All right, we're gonna go through the questions portion, which is, I think, the most fun part of these meetings, to make sure that the community gets answers. So I'm gonna work backwards. Will there be restrooms, and will there be water fountains?
There will. Oh, go ahead, Gavin. That's yours. Sorry.
Yeah, so I would say it is something that we've identified is we would like to put them in. We're still trying to figure out where we can tie in and what the expense will be to put restrooms, but our thought is that we would look at putting a restroom in this area that we're showing right now. And so that's what we're exploring now. We do plan on putting in water fountain, at least one here. I think we would definitely look at, at least one other on the other side where we had talked under the underneath the Grand Avenue structure. But we are definitely looking at that, and no, there is a restroom about 3/4 of a mile further on the path, but we do think that that's probably too far. So we are looking to do that. I can't say that it's definitely going to be there, but we are trying to do it.
Thanks, Gavin. There was a question about what West Oakland Link will do, specifically with the Ballers now scheduled to play at Raimondi starting in June. So what's that intersection?
I mean, we're really excited about this. I think like it helps us. We hope people from Emeryville, use the West Oakland link to get there on their bike. So it's really exciting that this is happening. I've had some discussions with the ballers, kind of just introducing our project and getting coordinated. I don't think we've had time to really absorb it and think about how that would work with the design. But I think that's really great feedback. And especially as things have happened really quickly with Oakland and baseball now, and I think there is a lot of kind of pride for a team wanting to come to Oakland that we should definitely look at. But we haven't built anything in yet because it is quite new.
It seems like an amazing opportunity, though.
Oh, absolutely.
No baseball on the link though. They're a little constrained at 15 feet. So
Maybe we can make one of our medallions a baseball. We can figure it out. We'll have to figure out the rights. You guys will help us with the stories to tell, but that's modern history. That's pretty cool.
I see Warren's question about whether or not there will be a document that we can share with the city of Oakland so that we can do this again. Yep.
I'm going to point you, I'm going to point you to two different things. One is there already is a document that the City of Oakland commissioned called Walk This Way, which talks about under freeway spaces. And Nicole, I can send it to you. It is mostly about places like the Broadway or Jackson Street connection, and it's of a different scale. I think you all have a different scale and therefore a different opportunity here. And there is an opportunity here that is unique because of the bike path. So I'm happy to share with you some information. I'm going to be very direct and say that I think we will have some opportunities because this is sponsored by a regional transportation agency, that if you tried to use it as a model for other things, it might not be the same. So we can certainly share information, and we're happy to, and I'm happy to share, as exactly you're saying, East Bay Greenway stuff, or we're doing work in some other areas. But I have found that although I want there to be like one rule, it seems like you negotiate with Caltrans on a project by project basis, and it's hard. But I'm happy to share, and I love the idea of not having to negotiate on a project by project basis. I think sometimes, to be fair to Caltrans, they have constraints and other things and safety issues that they're really serious and good about. And so they're listening to us and what seems easy to us, and then they're patiently explaining why something isn't possible, but it does not hurt to ask. So I hope that answers your question. I would love to see this extend.
Yeah, Warren offered some clarification. He's talking specifically about other trails in the city, like the East Bay Greenway, or so anything funded essentially by MTC.
Yeah, well, we'll put together the resources that we have, and then I think there's a fair amount of information. I don't know, Gavin, I'll let you speak to MTC. I don't know if there's if there already is a style guide from MTC. I think it's more jurisdictionally by, local jurisdictions.
it is jurisdictionally. I would it's jurisdictionally. I mean, the one that we do have is the Bay Trail guidelines, and that's being updated. And that, that is a little bit different here than here. This is part of the Bay Trail, so we will be kind of, as we do the wayfinding, collaborating, not only kind of making sure it matches the Bay Trail, but other parts of the trail, the parts that are on Treasure Island and Wewena Island. But yeah, so I think I would say that we're happy to kind of share anything that we've done here with other projects, and we do talk with them, and then whatever resources. But a lot of what we're doing here, and especially this great engagement that the West Oakland Environmental Indicators Project has put together, it is a kind of new model that we're following on how to do this. And so there will be lessons learned, and we can kind of write about those at the end. But we do hope that this is successful so that it can be a model.
Oh, and Marcus just shared the Walk This Way document. Very helpful. Thank you. I saw Alexis's comment about Prescott Greening, which is a WOP project that starts on 7th and frontage and runs through 16th and frontage. And I see that her question is asking whether or not from frontage road 16th through West Grand, if there was a way to combine the projects or deal with that gap. So short answer about combining the projects, no, since we're already in motion for West Oakland Link, specifically around environmental documentation and project area. And specific to Prescott Greening, there is absolutely opportunity for us to extend that project so that it covers all of frontage road. So any community support would be wonderful, since at the end of the day, with Prescott Greening and all of our projects, our downfall is limited funding for such a big task. More questions, keep them coming.
Maybe we can do is we'll take more questions, but I do want to make sure we don't lose people. And I do want to talk about our next meeting because I'm very excited about it. So Nicole, if you don't mind me taking this away and kind of talking about the open house. And then we'll go back for if there are other questions. But we have our next event will be April 23rd. It's going to be an in-person event. You know, it's an open house, open to everyone. It's going to be at DeFermery Recreation Center. It'll be from 5 to 7:30 on the 23rd. And so in addition to the project team, and we'll have a whole bunch of the project team there answering questions on the greening or on the structure or on placemaking, you know, different elements. We're also going to have somebody from the Bay Bridge Forward Project, which is that temporary lane that's going to come. And we will have someone from OakDOT there to answer related questions in that area. So really great time to come and bring these questions. The other exciting part about it is we are going to have a taco truck and daycare. So grab your neighbors, grab your friends, tell everyone, bring them by. You know, as long as you come and talk to us and ask some questions, you'll be able to get some tacos. And so really, we just want to emphasize this in-person event that we're really excited about, and really tell you to bring your friends, bring your neighbors, bring people as you walk there on the way, grab them, free tacos and daycare. So.
And it's an opportunity to ask questions. And I know that these community meetings are a space to do that. They're also, you don't get the full effect that you might in person with the designers, with WOAP there to chat with you. And I think it makes this entire process a little more human, to talk to us and eat tacos as you're learning.
Was there other questions? Sorry, might have missed them.
There was a question about whether or not there's any concern about items from the freeway making it over to the actual path.
Yeah, and so that sounds like that's a question of like if something fell off a truck or something on the freeway. And
Yeah, a hubcap was the example.
Yes, I don't think we've necessarily thought about that. So that is great. And I'm going to kind of assign that to Noel to think about because he's on the structure. But that is a good point, because it is a heavily used roadway. So that is thanks for bringing that up. That's great.
And Gavin, I'll give you a half answer, which is the roadways do generally have a lip, you know, so you can't, it's not just if it gets to the edge, it goes off. There's some consideration for this just baseline already, and we can talk more about it, but there's been a lot of work done to say that it is safe to be under freeways, and that's like why the bike path is there. And if there's a place which it isn't, they will let you know. But if Caltrans has let us get this far, I think it's a reasonable proposition. I'll just encourage us all.
Well, we will look at it though. We will make sure that it's been looked at, and yes.
Thank you. Jimmy, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just thanks again, everyone, for tonight's meeting. This is just so great to see, and just really exciting for this potentially to come to our community. I was looking at the slides. I joined a little late, but the on structure, and maybe you said this, the deck treatment. I just maybe a question around like what happens in rain and like the slipperiness of treated surfaces is one question I had.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. And we're concerned about it as well. We call that slip coefficient. And there's a variety of ways that you can add color to a surface, and a lot of them do make it more slippery. And so what we would consider would be just the one case where it does not make it slippery, and that is where they actually seed a top layer of it's called lithocrete, but it's a top layer of kind of like sandy glass particles that are colored, and that goes into the wet concrete right as they're pouring it, and just colors that top layer, and that gives you a colored aggregate. So the actual like texture, the grippiness of the surface is what's colored, and that is proven to have longevity of color, but also a great slip coefficient. So it's not like you're just painting the top layer, which we all know gets very slippery.
Awesome, thanks. And I guess a comment on the on-structure amenities with the bike racks. Like, to me, it makes sense to have them at the ends of the path, but on the structure, if there's a weighing of other options that might be better use. I guess the idea of locking a bike on the middle of the structure doesn't, if they're if it was maybe like putting in a binoculars for kids to like look down and like they have at the port,
Sure.
the Middle Harbor Port.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, our idea there would be not that you're stopping and going on an adventure from there, but that you just have a spot to rest your bike while you're sitting on the bench, or having your sandwich, or looking at using the binoculars. You have a spot to set your bike.
Cool, makes sense. Thanks.
There was a question specifically about, let's see, how would cyclists and pedestrians access Wolink from frontage road?
Yes. Okay. So I'll just take that here.
Thank you.
If you were on frontage road, there's two paths actually. So let's see if this is going to be a little bit better to come here. But there's two ways that you would get up to the West Oakland link. There is this one that I think we do focus on because it's kind of these sweeping views, and we're going to put a lot of greenery, this Wood Street entrance here. So this is the kind of one I think we've been showing most. There's also going to be, and this will be 12 feet wide, and there'll also be a staircase that you can walk up. There'll be a second way of accessing it, which will run parallel to Grand Avenue in the alleyway. And so this will be a 10-foot wide path. We don't think it will be as used because you still do have to cross frontage road. And that's one thing we've heard a lot from the community is the desire to avoid frontage road. But there will be a secondary path that comes up here and goes to frontage road. And there'll be we'll create some more space here for people to, build up if there's a lot of people. But you'll be able to, if you're going up frontage road and there's the existing sidewalk, you'll be able to walk up and then use the same crosswalk with the enhanced intersection, enhanced pedestrian, signal that we'll put in here. So that would be the way to do it. You'll be able to feed in from frontage road going, from the south side of frontage road. I don't think anyone would be coming from the north side, but you will be able to do this, or you'd be able to bike up. If there was a future bike lane put on frontage road, you would also be able to use that and then cross over here. So this is on structure, and you would be able to just enter where the people coming up Grand have come.
Thanks, Gavin. All right, we have the survey in the chat along with the Eventbrite link for our April 23rd open house. Please take the survey, and we hope to see everyone on April 23rd. We'll stay on for any additional questions, but wanted to end the meeting on time.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for coming.
And we are going to go out to we are going to the community meetings. We'll go to the farmers market. We are looking for other opportunities. We've talked with the ballers. Maybe there's a way for us to table at one of their games. So we are looking at those other opportunities because we want to reach as many people as possible.